Hey fellow filmmaker, whether you're shooting your first short film or taking a swing at your first feature, do not hit record until you've heard all these tips. These are the kind of things I wish someone told me before I started. So let's save you some headaches, okay? First up, the 180-degree rule. And yes, I know it sounds like a fancy film school term, but it's important. Imagine a line between both your characters you're shooting. Once you pick a side of that line that you want to shoot from, stay there. If you jump across this line without a motivated reason, your audience will get confused. It breaks kind of the visual geography of the scene. One easy reference is to make sure that both of your characters are looking towards each other on the independent shots. Here's an example. There are two separate medium shots and a wide shot. The direction the character faces in the wide shot should be the same direction he faces on the medium shot and the close-up. That way they keep looking at each other, even on the tighter shots, and the viewer will know the spatial orientation. Alright, next one. Lighting with intention. This is something that I've done wrong in my first films. Lighting isn't just about seeing things or even making something look pretty or cinematic. It's storytelling. It creates the world your characters live in. Ask yourself, where is the light coming from in the story? What's the mood of the scene? And yes, we've all watched hundreds of cinematic lighting tutorials about three-point lighting, which is kind of what I have going on here. But those videos are mostly referring to interview setups, talking head videos. In a movie scene, we have to consider the entire space. We have to see the different angles. We have to think about the perception of the viewer. Where does he think the light is coming from? The light can't just appear out of nowhere just because it looks good or lights up the space nicely. And with that in mind, now, you can try to use shadows and contrast and light like a painter, really. But don't forget, it has to be intentional. Alright, sticking to lighting for a second, here's a practical one. Place your key light on the opposite side of where the camera is. This gives you a so-called short lighting. It adds depth and drama to the face. If you light from the same side as the camera, everything will kind of feel flat. Flip it, and suddenly your shot looks cinematic. Yes, oftentimes it's easier just, pointing a light from the orientation where the camera is sitting, right? But believe me, lighting from the other side looks so much better. Actually, oftentimes this shooting style comes in natural or handy. Let's say you have a big window and you use the natural light from outside as your key light, shooting into the direction of the windows. And that automatically makes your darker side closer to the camera. And it makes a lot of sense if you also want to see out the window, right? You want to see the windows. Sometimes it can be a real challenge to achieve that kind of look. Here's, for example, a scene from our last film. We had to boom a lightweight Amaran 100D with a lantern to get that kind of effect, to get this backlight. Alright, tip number 4, hide your mics. That seems so obvious, but it happens to so many filmmakers. Hide your mics. If you're using lavs, take the time to tape them underneath your clothing properly. If you're using a boom, make sure it does not dip into the frame. Good sound can save bad image, but a visible mic will instantly pull your audience out of the story. A little example from one of our first feature films was that we barely used wide shots because we didn't know how to properly lav our talents, so we stuck to only boom setups. And that was a big challenge, and we wanted to use wider shots for some things and we just couldn't do it. So learn how to use lavs. It's not that complicated. I will do a video on this channel soon where I will explain how to do it easily and without breaking the bank. And knowing how to laugh someone is going to give you the ability to do those nice wide shots that, all the great cinematographers out there use with dialogue in it. Alright, tip number 5. Before you shoot a single frame, ask what's the emotional arc of the story. beginning, middle, end. It doesn't matter if it's a 2-minute short or a 90-minute feature. Your audience needs to feel the movement, growth, tension, resolution. You're not just shooting a scene, you're shaping a journey. Where does the character come from? What are his intentions? Where will that lead him? And how does he develop on the way? I should have probably put this first, this tip, but still, the order doesn't really matter. All right, lastly, skip cliché shots, especially for short films. We have all seen the short film with the opening sequence where the character's alarm goes off and he starts to get ready. The drone over the forest, random slow motion for no reason. And yes, we've all done it. But you can do better. Try to be more creative on how to open a scene or a film. But even if it's the most creative shot, if it doesn't serve the story, it shouldn't be in the film. You're not trying to impress other filmmakers, all right? You're trying to move people and tell a story. If you remember those 6 tips, you'll probably be ahead of 80% of the first-time filmmakers. You would probably be ahead of where I started out. Keep it simple, keep it intentional, and keep telling stories that matter. Well, if all of this helped you, drop a comment, or better yet, even link your film below. I would love to see what you're working on.